Today we are talking with Allan Kehler. He's in Saskatchewan, and he's a national speaker, best-selling author, and an advocate for men's mental health. His newest book is called Mental Health, It's Time to Talk. And I think more now than ever, it is definitely time to start talking about mental health. And it's everybody. I know you have a focus on men's mental health. And interestingly, in the news this morning, I saw a piece, a 35% increase in prescriptions being written for anxiety medication. But the number that really blew me away was twice as many women over men are getting those prescriptions. And it's not that there are less men in need, it's that there are less men willing to ask for help or to talk about the problem. And I think that's really what you have focused a lot of your time and effort on. And let's dig into that. Why do you think men are so unwilling to talk about this as a problem?
I think that historically, when we look at the way in which a lot of us were raised as boys, we weren't taught to be with our emotions. We weren't taught how to put a voice to our pain. It wasn't really modeled for us. It was more that idea of manning up, keep your head down, and that it's perceived as this weakness. And I think that we're definitely seeing a shift. And I know for myself, it really required being vulnerable and taking a risk. And what I found surprising for myself and also the men in which I interviewed was the fact that once they were able to be vulnerable and put a voice to some of their pain, what they thought was going to happen, such as being judged or perceived as lesser than, as weak, never happened. It was the opposite. They were always met with support. And so I think as the more that we're able to see the outcome and to see that, hey, as men, it's all right, it'll give other people permission to do the same.
Personally, I'm finding the struggle harder and harder. And I have weekly counseling. I have a psychiatrist I speak to on a regular basis. I am on my medication and I don't miss my meds. I don't. So how do we get somebody who is struggling today that doesn't even think that they should talk about it? How do we help that person that's hearing this or seeing this? How do we get them to take that very first step? That incredibly difficult very first step in coming to the realization that this is something that needs to be dealt with. It can't wait. And I think that's probably the most important thing is people think, oh, I'll deal with this later, or I'll be better in a couple of days, or this'll just blow over when the pandemic's over, I'll be fine.
Right. Yeah, well, I think number one, Chris, is to break through the denial. If you think that there's a problem, there probably is. So it's to stop projecting, it's to stop pointing. And the challenge is that we live in a world of doing. You ask people, how are you doing? Oh, I'm so busy. What has happened now with COVID-19 is all of a sudden we cannot be as busy as we once were. So all of a sudden we're stuck with this. We're stuck with this.
Right.
I don't know about you, but I hated being stuck with my thoughts. And so I think in order to break through the denial, you have to take an honest look at self and start having a relationship with self, which was incredibly difficult. And then just giving yourself permission to reach out for help, to be a little vulnerable and just test the waters. Test it with a close friend, somebody that you feel safe confiding in. It doesn't have to be a trained professional. And I suspect that what will happen is that there will be relief because emotions are energy. And it's the same thing. I'm sure you can experience this or have experienced this when you had a rough day, you're stressed, you're frustrated, and you just share with somebody that you trust for 10 minutes. And all that you do is talk and they just listen. And at the end of those 10 minutes, you sit back and you think, I feel better. Why? Because you were able to get some of that darkness out. So I would say test the waters, see what happens.
That makes perfect sense. And it addresses both those that are struggling and aren't sure what to do, and those that are seeing others struggle and aren't sure what to do. And on that, I want to thank Allan for your time today. It's great to connect with you. And I look forward to speaking again for YourTV. I'm Chris Potter.